I'm a researcher at a charity and have the privilege and honor of being able to look at movements like the collaborative economy and try to develop and share knowledge about what's happening. And I think there's a real important role in that respect in helping to provide public and open information that others can use to make sense of the questions that they're encountering, and also provide a space where we can have these discussions. We've been wanting to try and understand who's participating, what organizations are involved in the space, what values do they share, and how does this relate to government and policy. And going forward, we think there's a lot more that can be done to bridge gaps between areas like practice and government, but also research and practice as well. One definitely seems to be an interest in what's possible in this digital age and how can these tools help us. But in particular, that's regarding how we work together and can address some of the key challenges facing us right now in more collaborative ways. I suppose additionally, it seems that there's quite an excitement and a curiosity about how to do things in new ways as well, and willingness to experiment and learn from one another and seek out new possibilities. Finding ways to share these ideas more broadly beyond those who are already convinced by them seems very crucial, but also policymakers and government have, I think, a wider interest in understanding where these ideas could be applied. Can we be working in partnership with government or with other organizations to actually try to implement some of these ideas on a small level and then see how they can build and connect more widely? There does seem to be very common interests and desires for specific futures, but I think we're at a point right now where we need to be really clear what we're talking about. Sometimes we'll use a word such as collaboration or sharing or solidarity, but we mean very different things. And in order to actually have a really strong dialogue that can lead to a future that we're all very committed to, it seems important to be really clear about what the basis is for that conversation. I suppose finding shared definitions that many people can engage with and agree on is a really important starting point for collaboration. If we have different ways of seeing this future that we want to be working towards, or if we're not clear how we relate to one another, it will be really problematic to actually work together in future. I suppose one thing that seems quite crucial is how we organize ourselves. What's very interesting is a lot of these new movements are trying to work on with new organizational models, so applying some of this idea of decentralized collaborative approaches, and I think this is still something that we're trying to figure out how that works. It would be really interesting to think about how we actually reflect upon our own development as movements and what we can learn from one another, because this is very uncharted territory in many respects. So we have a lot of lessons to learn on how we can be effective and how we can operate in a way that is useful. It seems that there's a lot we can learn from ourselves right now, and figuring out how we can organize ourselves in more effective ways is really important. So if we want to be more decentralized and be more adaptive and able to respond to these changes, how do we actually work as a collective to do so? Learning from different movements like OuiShare, the open source communities, what can we do to actually create new organizations rather than just replicate old institutions for this kind of change that we want to see? Technological infrastructure seems to be a really crucial component to a lot of what we're seeing here. And access to that and the availability of it to a wider population is still something that's very important to consider. An increasing number of people do have access to the internet and do have tools for that, but we use them in different ways, and still there are parts of the population that aren't included in that. So finding ways of making digital technologies a more open and public infrastructure seems quite crucial. But that also doesn't discount people, and people have to come before the technology, because it's what we do with it rather than what is there that will make the difference. So I suppose in that respect, finding ways that people can connect and communicate, and perhaps tools that can help facilitate that, seems quite crucial right now.